Hello, everybody. My name is Lindsay, and I'm excited to tell you all about who I chose to research and just some really interesting things that I learned about them. So, the person in the Old Testament that I chose to research is Isaiah, and I chose him actually because Isaiah is a really beautiful book that I always return to, and I feel like the Lord always leads me to in my studies, and especially this year. The Lord at the beginning of the year really led me to Isaiah 58:11 as just an encouraging verse, and something for me to just really cling on to and hold on to. And it was really powerful, especially with the uncertainty of this year and the uncertainty not just in what's happened in our world, but also in my little world of just uprooting in some areas and trying some new things, and just the Lord's peace and His provision that's spoken through that verse, talking about how the Lord makes streams in the desert and rivers in the wasteland, and that He is our leader and our guide. And so it's always really encouraged me. So I was excited to be able to study Isaiah and study his life. And I hope you just get to hear some really interesting things today, just about the book Isaiah and who he is and his heart. So Isaiah was a prophet, and he was first mentioned in 2 Kings 19 and verse 2. And just kind of setting this up, I was having to read back and try to get some context too, but King Hezekiah had just received word from this other king, and his name, forgive me if I don't pronounce it super great, but it's King Rashakeh. But he has just received word from this king through his helper Eliakim. I should have really practiced my pronunciation a little bit better, but he had just received some word from this king that was really just coming against Hezekiah's name and the Lord, and really just who the people can trust. And Hezekiah actually rips his clothes, which in the Jewish tradition, that was a sign for the men of incredible mourning and just heartache. And so he actually rips his clothes and covers himself with a sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. And then this is where Isaiah comes in verse 2. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebna, the secretary, and the senior priests, covered with sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amos. And then it continues to go into that interaction with Isaiah. And I love it because this chapter's title in my Bible is called Isaiah Reassures Hezekiah. And I just think that's so special and so fitting for not only this story, but how Isaiah has always reassured me. And through his writings and through his book, I've really just been very impacted by Isaiah's words and the words that he's written down that are from the Lord's heart for his people. So that is where Isaiah is originally mentioned in 2 Kings 19 verse 2. And as I was researching Isaiah, I found some interesting things about him and the words that he has written down. Isaiah's writings, the writings in Isaiah, are actually some of the most frequently cited in the New Testament, which I think is really powerful. Even Jesus, I'm forgetting the reference number right now, but I know it's in many of the Gospels where Jesus actually opens the scroll and reads from the prophet Isaiah about his coming, which leads me into how Isaiah is written, and actually the really interesting structure, not only of the book, but how verse 1 is kind of that reflection for the book to come. So it's a super long book, but Isaiah actually sectioned chapter 1 and molded it to reflect how the entire book is going to go. So some key themes that we see in this book is that God is holy. We see justice and righteousness, and then we also see the Messiah. And what is so powerful is that we see God in his holiness and his justice and his righteousness, and then we also see this perfect promise of the Messiah to come, and also how the Lord has again and again reminded his people that he is a God of love, that he is not going to leave or forsake them. I'm so sorry if you can hear my dogs. But he is always for them and coming for them to give them a promise of forever right standing and everlasting joy to come. So if y'all are just interested in studying Isaiah, some of my favorite verses are Isaiah 6, Isaiah 43. I always go back to that one. That is just a really good reminder of our identity. Isaiah 53 is another great one, and Isaiah 54 and 58. Those are some of my top favorites. But if you just need encouragement and need to be reminded of just who the Lord is and his goodness and just what his words are and his heart is to you, the book of Isaiah is always just such a really sweet and beautiful book to study. And I was grateful to get to study who Isaiah was and his heart. And I really just love the title of that chapter, that Isaiah reassures Hezekiah, because that was just the heart of that man, to reassure people and to just share the heart of the Father to the world. And we're still reading his writings today. So thank y'all so much for listening and for being here. And great job with your hard work all semester. And hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.